Good morning. I am Steve Weber, and welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show being broadcast here on Spirituality Gone Wild and also broadcasting on the American Gumption Facebook page and the American Gumption YouTube channel. So thank you all for subscribing. So happy Black Friday, Friday, November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving, but kind of a weird Black Friday. Saw him, stopped in and visited my father this morning and saw on the news that the normal broadcast where they're, bedlam and mayhem in the shopping malls, and they're showing, a few people straggling around and not many people out and about. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe COVID's a good thing that we're not all out buying and shopping and acting like nuts in the malls. So I don't know. It's just a weird year. So anyway, but it's the day after Thanksgiving, kind of a mellow day yesterday for me. Not a big family gathering, which would have been a normal thing. So I imagine most people, that was their fate. So anyway, here we are on Friday, November 27th, and let's launch right into the American Gumption Morning Show. I have a guest, Bryan Quinn, coming up, and he is the author of Crush Your Career. And so we're going to talk about his book, and we'll get Bryan on in just about 10-15 minutes from now. I have a monologue, life chapters. We're going to go back to Forrest Gump, and we're going to review his life chapters, and we're going to talk about how life chapters really is the journey of life and how it relates to everything that we do. Whether you're looking for a job or whether you're starting a new career or whether you're just, kind of transitioning from, the year of COVID into the year of hopefully the end of COVID. So anyway, there's always transition moments and life chapters. I'll dive right into that. All right, now let me tease a little bit about what's happening on next week. On Monday, we have Bridget Kornetsky, and she is going to be coming to us live from Switzerland. And Bridget is an advocate filmmaker. Her film is Where the Elephant Sleeps, and she is essentially an advocate for the elephants in captivity, and specifically in India. So she'll tell us about the work she's been doing for the past 10 plus years, dedicating her life. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we have David Strickle and Joseph Labruto, respectively. David on Tuesday, on Wednesday, Joseph, and they are both hosts on Spirituality Gone Wild. They both have shows on Wednesday night. David's show comes on at 7 p.m. Eastern, or 4 in the afternoon on Wednesday, and 1 hour later is Joseph's show. And David is a channel, and he streams with spirit, and he calls it the Stream of David. And then on Wednesday, Joseph is one of America's most beloved medium. He connects people from the afterlife, people who have, people who are here in this time and space with deceased members of their families. And so he's been doing that work for really all of his life, but actively for the last 10 plus years. So we'll get into his story and how that works. And we'll talk to David about what he's doing. So anyway, that'll be on Tuesday morning, David, and on Wednesday morning, Joseph. All righty. Now let's go ahead and transition into today's monologue. I'll do a screen share here, and one more change of banner. There we go. We'll put the American Gumption banner up there. Alrighty. So what you're seeing is the life journey of Forrest Gump. And really, this is just what the movie was all about. It was, we first met. Well, we met Forrest when he was sitting on the bench telling his life story. And then he had all of these flashbacks. And it wasn't until the very end of the movie that the movie kind of became like real life live after his run across America. So that's all the way in the upper right-hand corner. But basically, Forrest started out as a boy. That's when we first met him. And then he went to high school. And you'll remember that there was the scene where, the boys were chasing him on the bicycle. And then the boys had grown up and they were chasing him in a truck. And Forrest is always running for his life. And, Jenny's telling him to run, Forrest, run. And so one of the interesting things is that when he was running for his life, being chased by the truck, he ended up running down the football field, and Bear Bryant just happened to be coach or recruiting, looking for new recruits to bring to Alabama, University of Alabama. And he says, who in the heck is that? And Forrest Gump goes running down the field. And the next thing you know, we see Forrest right into, in the stadium in the University of Alabama, running back footballs and learning how to play the game of football. And one of the neat things about that particular scene is that it shows that things happen serendipitously, and for what they seem like random acts and they seem like luck, and it just kind of takes him right from one place where he's in Greenbow, Alabama, getting chased by, the boys and not having much of a future, to suddenly here he is down on the football field at a major university. And as he goes through his college career, he was all focused on that. He was just learning how to play football, and we got to see some different scenes of his life there. But then when he graduated college, he's standing out there, and the Army recruiter comes up, and his mother's with him, and he's posing for a photo with his mother, and the Army recruiter says, have you given any thought to your future? And Forrest is like, thought? And next thing you know, boom, he's in the Army. And then that's where he meets Bubba and Lieutenant Dan, and of course they're soldiers, and then the scene where the battle takes place. And of course that changes everything, because Bubba ends up getting killed. Lieutenant Dan gets injured, loses his legs, and Forrest ends up just getting shot in the buttocks, but recovers without too much incident from that. And then he becomes a ping pong player in the U.S. Army. And so these moments, they just sort of happen to Forrest, and he just keeps going with it. And one of the really neat things about Forrest Gump is that he is present in the moment at all times. So he's not worried about like what happened when he's in the Army. He's not worrying about when he's a soldier. He's not worrying about thinking about his college days. He's focused on what he has to do. And when he's playing ping pong, he's not lamenting over, the war thing, reliving those things. He's just focusing on playing ping pong. And the first time in his life that he actually makes a real decision and a real choice, as opposed to just going with the flow of things, is when he gets out of the Army, discharged from the Army, and he ends up going and buying a shrimp boat. And of course that was Bubba's dream, but Forrest had adopted that dream as his own. And so he became a shrimp boat captain, but he didn't have much luck at the beginning. Anytime we start a new adventure, there's typically challenges and setbacks. And so, you can either give up and quit, or you could just keep going. And Forrest kept going and working hard at it. And I remember the old fisherman told him that it's bad luck to not have a boat without a name. So Forrest names the boat, and he names it Jenny. And then Lieutenant Dan shows up, and even when Lieutenant Dan shows up, they still don't have a lot of luck. They're lamenting, how do we catch the shrimp? How do we find shrimp? And they're just basically out there doing the best they can, getting up every day, going out to work, working hard, but not necessarily having a lot of success initially. And then all of a sudden there's the hurricane, and all of the, Forrest and Lieutenant Dan weren't even smart enough to check the weather report. They just happened to be out at sea when the hurricane hits, and they survive out there, and all the other boats are back in dock, and they all get ruined and, washed up on shore. And so they'll have to rebuild their fleets of shrimp boats. But in the meantime, Forrest's boat is alive and well. And then all of a sudden they're catching shrimp, and they have a successful, business. That's how the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company starts. So, and then there was a moment while they're, having this success that, Forrest gets a call from, over the CB radio, and it says the woman dispatcher tells him that Forrest's mama, she's sick. And we see Forrest jump up and, dive overboard. And then you see him running up the steps of his house and goes into the room, and mama wants to know what's happening. Here he asks mama, what's happening? And, she's saying, I'm dying. It's just my time. And they have a kind of a goodbye moment where they talk to each other, and Forrest wants to know what his destiny is. His mama says, you're going to have to figure it out yourself. And so anyway, Forrest ends up doing it, but he retired at that point. And then Jenny shows up and comes back, and then Jenny leaves. And that's when he went and did his run across America for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, 16 hours. That was a moment where he was like, kind of in deep despair. And what's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of it? And his run across America was all about trying to figure that out. And he even says it, that he said that Mama always said, you got to put the past behind you before you can move forward. And so, and he says, that's what my running was probably all about. And it was about putting the past behind him. And then of course, that's when we see him sitting on the bench and talking to the woman. And he says he's going down the Henry Street, and she says, Henry Street's just a few blocks away. And Forrest jumps up and runs down, knocks on Jenny's door, and then he finds out he's a father. So it's each chapter of life just goes along, and there's that transition moment that changes everything. Everything changes, like with one particular incident, whether it's like happening to be running down a football field, or a recruiter comes up and says, what are you going to do with your future? Or the war, the battle where, his platoon got wiped out. Bubba was killed. Lieutenant Dan loses his legs. And, these moments of life come along and just whack us and hit us. And sometimes they're just like a serendipitous moment, and other times they're something that really whacks you hard and knocks you down. But things change and you keep going. And so I call those the life chapters, each of these, and it's really the journey of life that you just go from place to place to place to place. And I thought that was a good little introduction and monologue to do today. I've done this monologue before, but it's been a few months since I did this particular one. But I thought about it because of our guest coming up, Bryan Quinn, and what he's going to talk to us about is, your career and how do you make a transition? How do you go from, one job to the next job? And what's the easiest and the best way to do that? And whether it's the easiest or the best way, it's going to be Bryan's way. So he'll come on board here in just a second and share that, with us. And yeah, that's it. So I just think that, back, kind of wrap up this Forrest Gump life journey and life chapters. Forrest, what he did brilliantly is that he was able to stay focused and stay in the moment no matter where he was. So he, of course, he reflected back on things that happened, and he was always thinking about, Jenny from his past, but it wasn't like he was paralyzed and stuck with that. It was more like, he was like thinking about it because he was thinking about what he wanted in his future. He wanted to somehow have a relationship with Jenny. And so, and in his career, when he was at college playing football, or when he was in the Army or playing ping pong or shrimping, he was always focused. He got up every day, he went out, he worked hard at it, and he just kept going with it. And when there were setbacks, it didn't freeze him up and ever let him quit. He just kept on going and kept on going. And that's really what the secret of life is learning as we go along and enjoying each moment, being in that present moment. And so I always, like when I show this chart in the upper right-hand corner, that's where the movie ends, when we see Forrest as a husband, well, actually as a widower at the very end, but he's a father to little Forrest, and really all of life is lived in the upper right-hand corner, and that's the present moment. And so this little timeline is all about like Forrest's story up until that, but the timeline is always in the upper right-hand corner in terms of where you are and what life chapter are you in at any given moment. And there's going to be, and we make plans and we have goals and we have ambitions, but those are the things that are going to come up in the future. And all of life is lived in the upper right-hand corner. And so, now let's go ahead and invite our guest to, come in and join us. Bryan Quinn, are you with us this morning?
Good morning, Steve. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. Looking good in your broadcast studio there. That's a heck of a microphone you got there. You're sounding great.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Hey, so Bryan, the way this works is I like to read just a little bit of an intro for each of my guests. I put one together for you, and then I have a first-time guest welcoming theme. So if you ever come back on the show, you'll never be able to hear this first-time guest theme again because it's only for the first time that you're a guest. So if you'll indulge me, I'll tell people who you are, and then we'll play the welcoming song. Does that sound like a good plan?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All righty, let's do it. All right, so Bryan Quinn is the author of the brand new book, Crush Your Career, Job Hunting, Resume Writing, and Interviewing. Crush Your Career is a complete step-by-step process for getting your next job or for taking your career to the next level. It starts with resume writing, goes through the interview process, getting hired, and your first full year on the job. In Bryan's day job, he's a sustainment manager for aircraft at Lockheed Martin. That position allows him to be an operations leader in areas of communications, corporate social responsibility, diversity, change management, human resources, and building cross-functional teams. If you can build cross-functional teams, you've put in a good day's work. So good.
Not always easy.
During his 28-year career in the U.S. Navy, funny, I was talking about Forrest in the Army, but you are a Navy man. His 28-year career in the U.S. Navy, Bryan had jobs including Logistics Squadron Operations Manager, Fleet Replacement Squadron Operations Manager, and Fighter Squadron Operations Manager. So you, my friend, took care of aircraft or making sure that the aircraft were well maintained and not just like a single plane, but the whole squadron. So thank you for that service. His specialties include mentoring, operations management, personnel management, organizational behavior, and change management. So Bryan Quinn, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Thank you, Steve. Absolutely thrilled to be here.
Let me play this song and then we'll get right into it. All righty. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you onto a broadcast before?
So no, but being in the military for almost 30 years, I've definitely heard the pomp and circumstance, and even a couple times for me, my retirement and so on and so forth. So a little emotional there for a second or two playing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's the Washington Post March. I don't believe it's specifically a naval song, but it certainly is a U.S. Military song that for all of our branches. So anyway, great. And American Gumption is all about patriotism. So we like what you were doing for our country, and I'll just give a moment of thanks for your service. 28 years is a good career. So a good place to start would be 2012, and your 28-year career comes to an end. And what happened? What happened at that point?
So actually, I'm going to take it back to 1984 when I first entered the military. And as a young man watching, just trying to figure out my own path, my own life, I probably came in contact with hundreds, if not thousands of people that were getting out of the military, whether it be after their first hitch, 10 years in, retirement, whatever. And I always ask people the same question. What are you doing to prepare to get out? And a lot of people would be like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You spent 4 years doing this. Did you do anything? And a lot of people are like, well, I've got the Navy schools behind me. I'm going to go be an aircraft mechanic and I'll find a job at an airport or something. And I thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool. So I'm thinking about my own future at this point. Um, and then I learned that your military schools will get you something, but it won't get you that FAA certificate, your power plant, your airframes. It won't get you any of those things. So um, I saw a few people studying to get that, and I thought, okay, well, that's the plan. Go and get your AMP. Um, but most people that get out, whether it's just after 4 years or after it's after a 20, 30-year career, a lot of them don't have resumes. They don't have a plan. They don't know what they're going to do when they get out. So one of the things that I decided, I was at the 10-year mark and I was going to get out. I was done because um, I had pretty much just had enough, right? And that 10-year mark, it's halfway to 20, so it's really one of those make or break moments. Either you're going to get out or you're going to stay and be a lifer at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so um, I I was actually in California at the time. I flew back east to look at a business opportunity that a friend of mine was going to share with me. And on the flight back to California, I staring out the window said, I'm not done yet. So um, fast forward all the way to 2000 is when I earned a commission in the military. I was prior enlisted. I earned a commission. I did not have a degree. And so now I'm at 15, 16 years in my career. And I know I have another 15, 16 ahead of me. But I also know that I need to get my degree to carry on to set myself up for retirement at this point. Um, and still a lot of people were not doing, and to the day that I retired in 2012, a ton of people had not, they still don't prepare. In my opinion, you should start preparing 18 to 24 months out of the time that you're getting out. Retirement, generally, you can pinpoint anything because you sign up for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So when that end date is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people just don't prepare for it. Um, so when on my website there, there's I kick off one of the first sentences, one of the first paragraphs with, "This has been a lifelong labor of love," and it really has been, because I've been researching this for the past 35 years. You know, um, so 2012, I do retire, and I have a resume, but um, I decided to dip my toe in the professional arena to see what they could get. A 28-year naval officer with all this experience, and at this time, I'd gotten my MBA. So let's just throw it out there and see what happens. And so I paid quite a bit of money for a resume and some job search help and everything else. And
So when you said you said you're going to dip your toe in the professional arena, what you are really saying there is that I'm going to go ahead and hire a professional person to help me like get my career going. They're going to write my resume, or they're going to, coach me or somehow help me transition. That's what you mean, correct?
yes, sir, that's absolutely what I
Yep.
meant.
Good.
Thank you for the clarification. And so I spend the time, I spend the money, I'm just working my butt off trying to, get a job, and it's not working. And I'm just, oh, so what am I doing wrong? And I go to the guy, and the bottom line after some introspection was, he doesn't know me like I know me. He's not pulling for me like I would pull for me. Um, they want extra money to throw extra keywords into a resume. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. Um, so I was very, very disappointed with that. I rewrote my resume. I got my own position with a airline catering company, and that was horrible. Don't ever do that. It was a great experience. I worked with some fantastic people, but management was not that good. The general manager ended up getting replaced just before I left to go to Lockheed, and That was probably the best thing for that unit right there. But so yeah, since I've been in that position there, I was a hiring manager. I've been a hiring manager with Lockheed Martin in the past and will be again, but I'm involved in a ton of interviews, a ton of resumes. And it's just amazing to me how ill-prepared people are, how some of these resumes, they're not really up to par. I have a friend of mine who's a recruiter. She's a headhunter in Illinois. And she tells me that she gets people come to her all the time. Hey, find me a job. You're a recruiter. And she looks at their resume and says, you are not ready. You are not prepared. So I think there's an absolute market. There's an absolute need. And it all started with myself. It all started with me.
Yeah. So that it's very interesting because you took us all the way back to, the 80s sometime when you were like really beginning your career and you were already thinking about like, well, how do I move from life chapter to life chapter? Because even though you could lump 28 years as the US Navy, you probably had 10, 15, 20 different positions during that time. Now, the process of jumping in the Navy or any military from one position to another is slightly different than in the free market position world where you didn't have a resume. You didn't really need a resume. You did somewhat. You had to prepare and go through interview processes to get an advancement, but it was a very different kind of a culture. So you were basically ill prepared for the free market job market as you got out.
I was in the military. You don't have a resume, but you do have a reputation, right? And it's your reputation that carries you from place to place there. You get your foot in the door, you bust your butt, you're a go-getter, you're a hard charger, and you get the positions, right? That's kind of the way it is. Out here, you still have a reputation, but if you're changing industries and you're going to a different state or a different company or whatever, someone may or may not know you. In the military, somebody knows you where you're going, or somebody knows somebody there that's going to have a word to say about how you've performed in the past and so on and so forth.
So you're almost a lot of times just, like it's like kind of a referral or a reputation thing that kind of launches you to the next chapter in the military, that more so than like your resume that you have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, so we're going to get into your book, Crush Your Career, Job Hunting, Resume Writing, and Interviewing. And there's an offer, crushyourcareer.net/offers, FTLCQLQ. I'm going to put that in the link, the show notes, but that people can go and learn more about who you are in the process and exactly what they'll get by going to that connection or that link. Is that true?
So that link right there is it's to my Black Friday.
Okay.
It's the Crush Your Career Discovery Bundle.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've taken a class that I did and put together a bundle. If I sold it separately, it would cost over $680. You go to that link, which is valid until Sunday night at midnight. You pick everything up for just $49. You get a career satisfaction quiz. You get a blueprint. I did a quiz asking people what their biggest blind spot was in their resume. And there's basically 3 directions that you will end up in. And I've included all 3 of the reports that go with that. People are like, why are there 3? And I said, well, as often as you're fixing one, you fall into the next. So as you're writing your resume to fix this one thing, you could be falling into another area of concern. And then the biggest thing there is it's a discovery class, and it talks a little bit about habits that you have, the community, how you identify yourself. It's just a fantastic class. It's designed for 4 weeks. But it's go in there, check it out. It's just $49 for Black Friday.
Excellent. And I did add that to the show notes already, or in the chat box. And so on the American Gumption Facebook page or the American Gumption YouTube channel, that has been added to the link there. So go ahead and check that out before Sunday for that offer. So I have one kind of, I want to go, your career is kind of fascinating. And you said it, I'm going to ask one specific question. You said that at year 16, you got your commission. So you're an enlisted guy. And then you get commission, meaning that you're now an officer, or but you didn't have you didn't have a college career at that point. So how did that work? I mean, how did they give you that position?
So the Navy had a program called LDO CWO, which is a Chief Warrant Officer, Limited Duty Officer. And it's as far as I know, and I've been away from the game I retired in 2012, so I haven't been able to catch up. But as far as I know, that was the only commissioning program offered in any of the services where you don't need a degree to get accepted to be a commissioned officer.
Oh,
with that, the word limited, there's certain things you can do. So basically what you are is you're a technical officer. I'm the wrench turner. I'm the greasy guy down in the hangar bay today. And then tomorrow I'm in the ready room, which can basically a liaison between the pilots and the officers and the maintenance world. Right. So it was a fantastic experience. I wouldn't have it any other way. I just thought that was awesome.
But then at this point, I know you have your MBA. Did you get a college degree while you were still in the Navy?
I did shortly after. So I got commissioned in 2000. I got my degree, my bachelor's in aeronautics from Embry-Riddle in 2004. And then I got my master's from North Central University in 2010.
And so did that remove that little asterisk that was next to your commission, or as you got degreed?
Well, no, that doesn't matter to me. And it never mattered to anybody else either, because it's a lifelong tradition in the Navy. You know, we're called Mustangs. It's
right.
Right. It's somebody with a prior enlisted becomes an officer, you're a Mustang. And that's something to be proud of. There is no asterisk. It's not like taking steroids and smacking home runs or a 3-game World Series, because of COVID or something. There's no asterisk there, in my opinion.
Okay.
Somebody else might have a different opinion.
Fair enough.
But that was all part of preparation. That was all part of preparation for me to get out as well. The master's degree was at that point, I'm writing my resume because I know I'm retiring within the next couple of years anyway.
Right. So let's go ahead and launch into the book. Let me throw the one banner. Oh, and let me go ahead and just do a quick screen share here, and we'll throw up there. There is Bryan's book, Crush Your Career, and you can see the career ladders there where you're just moving up. Right up the ladder. So that's the idea of it. How'd you get that? Who designed your cover? It looks pretty good.
So there's a website out there, Freelance People, and you can get absolutely anything done. It's called Fiverr.com, Fiverr. And I went in there and I found a gentleman to format my book, designed the book cover. And that's where I went. And you can see on this one right here, it says Fiverr watermarks in there.
Yep.
So that's where I went to get that designed. I thought he did a fantastic job. I like the color. I like what it says. And this is also available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback.
Awesome.
So I just want to throw that out there as well.
Very good. So, the very first thing you talk about in the book is the fact that we have to decide, where are you going? What industry do you want to be in, and what are your skill sets, and kind of matching them up. And before you write your resume, you got to kind of have a plan on where you're going and what it is you're going to offer to people.
Absolutely. We have to do that. There's, so part of the purpose of that career satisfaction survey assessment that I put in there, you can look at the statistics and all of the surveys that have done out there. Anywhere from 60 to 80% of the people are not happy in their current jobs and their current careers. So one of the things I ask any of my clients, I'm like, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you happy doing what you're doing? No. So why are you doing that? And I get answers anything from, well, it's the family business. I'm expected to do it. I'm good at it. I just don't like it. I just don't enjoy it. And then I go on with them. Over the course of our lifetime, we spend approximately 40 years in a career, in a job, and that's 72,000 hours.
Mhm.
If you're going to spend that amount of time doing anything, don't you think you should spend a little bit of time researching it, deciding what you want to do? Um, don't you think you should have a more of a say than just because I'm good at it or because it's the family business?
It's funny. I'm remembering back to my childhood, and just a story that I heard about somebody who was sort of a family friend, and maybe the parents were like, both, one was a doctor and one was, some kind of a, maybe a teacher or some kind of a degreed person. And there was like this expectation that the kid wanted to go, was going to go do this. And then, the kid goes, you know what, I don't want to go do that. And so anyway, it's, why do we end up doing what we do? Are we making the choice, or are we just fulfilling someone else's choice, or someone else's idea of what we should be? So
I think a lot of people just following the cow path, their mom and dad walk the same path to the pasture in the barn every day. They have a calf. The calf starts walking the same path. Mom and dad go away, slaughterhouse, die, whatever happens. And then that calf is walking the same path. And then that calf grows into a cow and has a calf. I mean, that's really just the way a lot of people walk through life.
yeah. Yeah. Now, once you decide what it is, what your skill set is and what your industry is, you get into the idea of, making your resume, and you use the term, pick it apart. And Jen, tell us about that.
So pick it apart is the job app. So you've decided where you want to go. You've decided what industry you want to be in. And let me just caveat that with nothing's etched in stone. If you do something for 4 or 5 years, you decide it's not what you thought it was going to be and you want to change it, then change it. Right. Um, so you've decided that. And I mentioned earlier about some of these professional resume writers want to charge you. There's tiers to it. You get the basic resume for $50, and these are hypothetical numbers. I don't know. Could be 500 for all I know. You get the basic resume for $50, but if you want 2 keywords to go into your resume, then it's $75. And if you want, your LinkedIn profile to match your resume, then it's $150, and so on and so forth. So when I say pick it apart, I'm talking about you find a specific job requisition online that tells you what the job is. It gives the job description. It gives the basic requirements. It gives some desired skill sets that they're looking for, a little bit about pay or benefits or whatever. That's what you need to pick apart, because in there lies your keywords. They're going to tell you, basic, I need a 4-year degree. Do you have a 4-year degree? Yes. Put it in your resume. I'm looking for somebody with Tableau experience or C++. Do you have that? Yes. Put it in your resume. Those are the key words. So you don't need to spend an extra $25, $50, $100, whatever the case is. The whole premise of this book is to teach you how to write your own resume, so you don't have to go pay somebody every single time you want one done. Another misnomer is that, and I did this myself when I first got out, was I had one resume and I applied to 50 positions. Well, that doesn't work. 50 positions require 50 resumes. And I'm not talking about a whole brand new resume. Your education is never going to change. Your work experience is never going to change. I'm talking about some of those key words. Maybe this one wants Tableau and C++, and then the other one wants SKU2 or whatever it is, whatever programming skill sets there are. So you don't put that in there. So if you have 10 skill sets, but they're only asking for 3 of them, put those 3 in there. And if you think that a couple of the other ones are going to bolster your resume, then you put it in there.
When my career as Forrest Gump came to an end, the last 10 years I've been speaking professionally, going into organizations, and I had essentially one basic presentation that I gave, but each time it was personalized. It wasn't customized, it was personalized. And custom means you basically start like brand new, fresh each and every time. At least that's what custom meant to me. And personalized meant is you have a basic core message and you just tweak it a little bit so that you're talking specifically to that particular audience. And what you're suggesting with the resume is that every resume needs to be personalized for the job that you're looking for. And so you're going to just emphasize a few things that they have, as long as you have, or a few things that they ask for. As long as you have those skills, you want to like put them up front and center so that they're going to, there's going to be a match. Because the other reality is that this is happening on a computer. It's not even getting to a human initially.
We're on the same wavelength. I was just going to say that that's what those keywords are. Upwards of 75% of resumes never get seen by human eyes. Everything's computerized. Everything's digital today. So that equates to millions and millions of resumes that just go into the ether and never get seen. Things like special font and floral design, background watermark, whatever, those things can actually confuse the ATS algorithm and reject it. You might have the keywords in there. You might have the right things in there. In my book, page 44 is my template that I use. It's very basic. It's very vanilla. It's I have it in a certain arrangement on purpose for, in my opinion, optimal keyword searches so that the ATS picks that up quicker. ATS, applicant tracking system. Some people call it automatic tracking system. But that's what recruiters and HR is using to differentiate between one that gets through and one that doesn't get through.
When I was early in my speaking career, back in the early 20 teens, so 2012, 2013, I remember I was very involved with the professional organizations where speakers hung out. And so I was meeting people who were, professionals in this industry. And I remember I would ask them a lot of questions in terms of trying to get knowledge. And one of the things that happened was that they would just like sort of throw something out. But what they were really doing was they were describing what worked for them. And they weren't necessarily having an understanding of what worked for me. And the conclusion I came to after, several painful moments was that ultimately nobody cares about my career as much as me. And you said that when you said about hiring a professional who's going to, give you like kind of a menu of things that you want, which you don't even know what you want. Ultimately, you want all of them. But that person doesn't care about your career as much as you. It's not that this person is like insensitive and doesn't care. It's just that the reality is they don't care as much as you do about your own, and they don't know you as well, and they'll never know you as well. So what you're doing is encouraging people to just, have the confidence in their own abilities, and you're giving them skills and what they need to think about. But basically, you need to be in charge of your own career. You need to write your own resume, and it's not that hard. And matching up your LinkedIn profile to what your resume looks like isn't that hard, other than, it's just some work.
That's right. And so the LinkedIn profile thing is really a lot of professional resume writers have latched onto that the past 10 or so years, since LinkedIn has really been active and a place to go. As a hiring manager, when I see somebody's name and I get a resume, I look at them. I go and I Google their name, and I look at their Facebook, and I look at their LinkedIn profile. The last round of interviews that I just did a couple months ago, a gentleman, I looked at his resume up on one screen and I had his LinkedIn profile up on the other screen, and there were some dates that were wrong. And so I asked him about it in the interview, and I said, hey, on your LinkedIn profile, it says you did this from 2017 to 2019. On your resume, it says 2017 to 2018. So and he says, oh, I didn't realize I did that. It's a typo. I did it from 2017 to 2018. It wasn't a 2 year, it was a 1 year. And so you just need to make sure that those things are matched up. I don't know how many people go into that. I do it. And I try to make my LinkedIn profile look as much like my resume as I can.
Yeah.
The LinkedIn profile it's an extension of, I mean, it should match, it should look the same. But you have a lot more room and a lot more characters and everything else that you can do in LinkedIn. And so I just realized that I bypassed one of your earlier questions when you mentioned gin.
Yes.
Gin is Google it now. So when you're
Yes.
going in and you're picking apart that job requisition, if there's something on there that you don't know or you don't recognize, Google it, find out what it is, and you may or may not have that skill. But you don't know because different industries call different things different stuff, right? So
Right.
Google it. Make sure you have a full understanding of what everything on there is. Don't just look at it and say, "Oh, SAP, I don't have that. Oh, Tableau, I've no idea what that is. I don't have that." When you 100% possibly could.
Yeah. Yeah. You gave the one example of a client that you are working with. I think a young lady who was maybe had worked in the restaurant business, but was looking at a supply chain thing, and you were able to connect what she had done with that, even though, but she wasn't able to see that. So you helped her see how there's these connections between, maybe what you had been doing and what you didn't do. So there's certainly the advantage of having a coach and someone who can help you, is they will give you the confidence or the ability to connect dots that maybe you don't see.
Sure. Full transparency. I thought I mentioned it in there, but that's my daughter. She was in fine dining, and I may have, no, that's fine. I mean, that's why I mentioned it here. This is out on the net. Everybody sees it. So I don't want any hidden anything. I thought I mentioned it. If I didn't, then I will in the next revision. She was working in fine dining, and COVID hit, and she said, I'll just take a couple weeks off, and when it blows over, I'll go back. Well, about 3-4 weeks later, it didn't blow over, and she couldn't go back. And so she asked me if there was anything, where I was at. And I said, well, let me look around. And so I found supply chain, and I showed her the job requisition, and she's like, well, I don't know what SAP is. What is logistics? What does that mean? What is this? What is that? Stock levels? I don't do anything with stock levels. So I sat down. I says, everything's computerized, right? When I order a meal, what do you do? She says, I go in and I punch it in the computer. I says, what do you think the computer does with it? She goes, I don't really know. She goes, it subtracts from the inventory and it does this and it does that. I said, that's SAP. That's an SAP system. That's all that is. So yes, you have that. Check. How do you get the steak to? So the computer says, keeps your tracking level of how many ribeyes are in the freezer, right? Yeah, it does. So one out, one out, one out, one out, time to order, right? So there's your stock levels. Check. You got that. How does that happen? Well, it automatically sends over to American Beef Company, and they show up every Tuesday and Thursday with however many ribeyes we need. I said, there's your logistics piece. She's like, so after I explained that to her, she's like, wow, I had no idea that those things. I said, oh, so we looked all that stuff up on Google. What is logistics? Yada, yada, yada. So I told her how her experience in the restaurant translated to the supply chain. So she's been happily working as a supply chain item analyst for the past 4 or 5 months.
Excellent. Yeah, it's interesting because we all have technology in our we all need to have technology in our toolkit, at least the basics. And there's a lot of times where I'll be able to I'll realize something in my technology isn't connecting. There's some kind of a connection that needs to be made, and I understand what it is. And once I understand what it is, I just Google it, and within 5 minutes, you can solve the problem. It's really quite amazing, the way this whole thing works now. Now, I don't like necessarily researching some of those things and solving some of those problems. And it would be a wonderful thing if I had somebody that could help me do those things. But the reality is that, you just have to you got to do what you got to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so that's all this book and everything that I talk about is really just to get people to understand that it's not that difficult. You can write your own resume. Sure, up front, you got to do the work, right? It might take you 4, 5, 8, 10, 20 hours to do all this research, decide what you want to do before you have your first basic resume, right? 20 hours out of 72,000 is nothing. 10,000 zeros 1, right? It's not that difficult. Anybody can do it. It's a skill. Once you learn it once, I recommend people go through it twice a year just to keep their resume up to date, just to make sure that their interview skills aren't lacking. You could get an interview tomorrow and you need to be prepared. It's really, really, really just truly not that hard.
So we get your basic resume done. Now we got one of them. Okay, now you're sending it out, but you're going to personalize each and every resume, and you're going to also personalize a cover letter. So just talk about that process, the cover letter and the personalized resume.
So the cover letter is, a lot of people use that to try to sell themselves. Don't do that. The cover letter is really just designed to humanize you as a person. So I just had an interview a couple of weeks ago, and in my cover letter, I did some research on the hiring manager. I knew her name, so I Googled her and I did the LinkedIn thing, and I saw in there that she went to Emory-Riddle. Well, so did I. So do you think I'm not going to put that in my cover letter? Of course I am. Why? Because that humanizes me. Now we have a connection. Now we have something, right?
Right.
So find those things, put those in your cover letter, and it's just um, to make sure that you're going to be a team player, to make sure that you're going to, you're right for their culture, whatever, just whatever humanizes you. Yes, I see you have this position. I'm interested in it. Here's a few highlights as to why I think I'd be good. Whatever you put in there is not in your resume. A thing or two about education, or if you grew up in the same town or area, state, whatever, just find one thing that's going to link the two of you together. But the bottom line is, do a cover letter. I think that upwards of 90% of the people that I've interviewed have not included a cover letter. I just got a resume.
Interesting. You said so the purpose of the cover letter is to get them to read the resume, and the purpose of the resume is to get them to interview you. So it's like a step-by-step thing. So they're not going to, if they don't read your resume, they're not going to interview you. So you want to use the cover letter to get them to read the resume. And then if they read the resume, maybe then they're going to interview you. So it's just really a step-by-step procedure.
Yeah, but see, that's tough because of the ATS. The ATS doesn't look at cover letters.
Oh,
The
there you
ATS looks at resumes. So it's the resume first. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. But and you'll see statistics anywhere from 45 to 60% people never even read cover letters. Personally, I do, because I like them. I like to see, it's
Right.
kind of part of my business here with this, right? Is I want to know what cover letters and resumes people are sending out. So I look at them. But the key thing is that the resume is designed to get you an interview. It's not designed to get you a job.
Right.
Mano y mano interview, that's what gets you the job.
So let's talk about the interview. And you do something, you call something a star story. Tell us about that.
So I try to phrase all of my answers in the STAR format, which is you explain the situation, you explain the tasks that you did, you explain the action that you took, and then you always explain the result. Most people leave out the result part. They'll tell you a little story about whatever, and they'd never tell you about the result. Well, that is the key. That is the single most important part, because you can tell me about all the wonderful actions you took, but if there is no result, you're just leaving the interviewee up in the air. And I will specifically say, here's the situation, yada, yada, yada. So the task that I took, because this is about me, it's not about my team, it's not about anything. This is the task. These are the actions that I took. And as a direct result, and you got to use a metric. We saved the company 10% of budget. We were 3 days ahead of schedule. We were whatever. Use a result that has a metric that is important to the company.
Yeah. The result is ultimately what anybody cares about who's going to hire you. The story is nice, but like they're just after they're after the results. Are you going to be a results person? So you got to frame it in a way that they can relate to what they do. And of course, you're telling your history, you're telling about what they did. So they're going to take that and go, oh, well, if he did this, then maybe they can, do this for us. And that person during that interview is probably going to, drop all kinds of hints on what kind of results they need, if you're paying attention and listening.
It's in the question. It's short, sweet, to the point. But whenever I have a follow-up for somebody, the vast majority of the time it's in what happened? What's the result? How did it end?
Yeah.
It's not a cliffhanger. I'm not coming back for part 2.
So they get, you get to the point, then, you have the interview, it goes pretty well. They make you some kind of an offer. What do you see happening when people receive an offer?
Before you even apply for the job, you should have a number in mind. You should know if you're moving to a different state, a different city, what all these other things are. So that's part of the research part of the first class that I teach, is you need to know what your numbers are. Don't counter just for the sake of countering. You get the job offer. If it matches your number, be comfortable. Take it. You're happy. You're not comparing. I'm not comparing my salary to what Steve makes, and Steve shouldn't be comparing his salary. This is what I need. I need to, put food on the table, vehicle, clothes on my back. That's what I need. If you are going to counter, you have to counter with a reason. You can't just say, I want 60 because Steve is making 60. We went to college together and I got better grades than he did. Who cares, right? You
Right.
have to say, I want 60 because I have this certification, which is above and beyond what was in your requisition. I have this education. I've done these things. If you're going to counter with intelligence, counter with a reason why.
In the last minute or so, Bryan, you get hired, you're now starting, what's that first year like? What's the first week like? What's the first month like? And what's the first year like?
So the first week, you're really just trying to get all of your accesses, trying to figure out who's on your team, trying to figure out your place, your role. Um, your first month there, it's pretty much the same thing. You're starting to get into some sort of a schedule. You're starting to get into some sort of a rhythm. When the team meetings are. When this is happening. When that's happening. You're starting to get an idea how your team works and gels together. Your first year, you're always looking. I'm not saying you're going to be dropping applications 6 months into your new job. I highly recommend whatever job you get, you spend 2 to 3 years there so that you can learn something, so that you can be effective, so that you can become proficient at something before moving on to the next one. But you're always looking at your boss, at your boss's boss. That I would like to think that's something that you aspire to be. In a company as large as mine, there's supply chain, there's new business development, there's production, there's sustainment, there's engineering. You should be looking and creating relationships and networking with people in those other areas. And then you just start the process all over again. Have a resume ready. Be good to go with your interview questions and technique. Know where it is you want to go and what you want to do.
Bryan's book is called Crush Your Career, Job Hunting, Resume Writing, and Interviewing. And there's a Black Friday special that's good through this weekend. I put that in the show notes and the American Gumption Facebook page and also the American Gumption YouTube channel. In those notes, you can find crushyourcareer.net/offers/FTLCQLQL. So just click on that link and you'll see what Bryan has as far as a package, because obviously he's gone through this process and he's thought about it. And you can just go to Amazon and get the book if that's all you need there. So anyway, that's it. I want to show, let me share this one more time. The book, there it is. There's the cover of the book. It's it's not a long read. There's like 7 or 8 chapters, and it goes through, but it's nice and concise. I like it. I enjoyed reading it. Thank you very much for joining us. What's your last bit of advice to someone who is in that transitional moment where they're like, they gotta make a move. They got to do something.
Don't be intimidated about a resume. It's really not that big of a deal. Get the book. So the book on my page is it's under $8 on my page. On Amazon, the paperback is $15 and it's $10 for the Kindle. Really, it's worth thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over the career, over your career. Do not be intimidated. Do not be afraid to put in the work, write your own resume, and by all means, crush your career.
Very good. Well, thank you, Bryan, for joining us. This was a conversation and really helpful for anybody who's in that transitional stage right now. And with this year, as crazy as it's been, there's lots of people in transition. So I wish you and anybody who reads your book lots of luck and success going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, Bryan. All righty. Well, that was fun. Bryan Quinn, let me throw up there it is. Crush your career, job hunting, resume writing, and interviewing. And there's the offer. That is in the show notes or in the comment section. So go ahead and look there to find that offer that Bryan has for you this weekend. So that's it, everybody. It's been a good week, a Thanksgiving week. We did 5 shows this week. Who takes off for Thanksgiving week? Certainly not me. Now, next week, Monday, Bridget Kornetsky, the advocate for elephants in captivity in the country of India. Where the Elephant Sleeps is her film. She'll tell us about what she's dedicated the last 10 years of her life to. On Tuesday, David Strickle, The Stream of David, and that is a Spirituality Gone Wild's very own David Strickle. And then on Wednesday, Joseph Labruto, America's Most Beloved Medium, and he also is one of our hosts here on Spirituality Gone Wild. Both David and Joseph have shows on Wednesday evenings. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about who they are and how they got into doing what they've been doing. All righty, everybody. Have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for Bryan Quinn for coming and joining us. It was a good week and a fun interview today. So have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you next week.